Okay, morning everyone. So today is POV test drive of the Citroen eC4, and if you're picking up an annoying squeak in there is one. Make that of what you will in terms of build quality, but unfortunately there's nothing much I can do about that. And in terms of, you may not be able to see the instrumentation and the speed and everything. I can. It's just because I'm using a polarizer on the GoPro to try and reduce the reflections you see in the windscreen. So power is, for this, 100 kilowatts, sort of 134 horsepower, and torque is 260 newton meters. The acceleration is, I think, 9.7 seconds, and the top speed is 93 miles an hour. So in many ways very similar, probably because they're using the same motor and all that sort of thing, as the 208. But the 208 has quite a bit quicker acceleration. I mean, it's in the low 8s, whereas this is in the top 9s. I'm not really sure of why there's such a big difference, because this only weighs about 100 kilos more, and I think it probably is more aerodynamic. It's more efficient, I think, anyway. I'll come on to that a bit later. So, yeah, all in all, though, it's fast enough, you know. What I'll be doing is just taking it for a drive along a little bit of a twisty route. So just to see how it handles. There's no doubt it's been set up for comfort. So the drive is through the front wheels. It's fairly standard for a car like this. And the braking, as you can tell, I've got it in B mode down there. That's the only regen you have. There's no, you're not able to change the sort of amount of regenerative braking that you can, for instance, in a Hyundai or the Korean cars. So that's a bit of, a shame, but I suppose they're trying to make it easy for people to come from an ICE or fossil car into something like this, and they don't have to worry about it, just have to press a button. Okay, we've got some possible roadworks here. Okay, yeah. Yeah, here we are. Okay. So, oh, that's a bit lucky. So, whilst, and we're just going through this. So the regenerative braking isn't crazy amounts, and I'm actually on quite a low charge at the moment. Let's just see how much charge I've got left. Yeah, 21%, so not a huge amount. But even then, it's still not a great amount. I've put it in sport mode, you get less there, whereas of course if you go into normal or eco, there's a bit more regen. But in terms of the brake pedal, yeah, that's fine. It has a bit, I wouldn't say feel, but it doesn't have that same initial sponginess the 208 does. So that's undoubtedly better. And as you can tell, there's a bit of wallow in the ride, but it has been set up for comfort. The primary ride, so road holding, I mean, the road holding is fine. There's absolutely no issue with it whatsoever. But, it's not as direct or as probably as grippy as the 208 was, but this is not you're not driving this for back road thrills. You're driving it to take your family somewhere and be in peace and quiet and comfort. But the secondary ride, the primary ride is the sort of dips and crests. The secondary ride is all the potholes and nasty bumps and ridges you get on these roads. Is phenomenal. I mean, I can't think of a car recently that has such a good secondary ride as this. I mean, it just soaks things up so well, and you can feel the suspension doing the work. And I'll put in on the screen what the actual name of what Citroen have developed, and it does work really well. But you can feel the suspension trying to iron things up, but it just, because of the seats as well, I think just none of it comes through to you, or a very small amount, and it's just really comfortable. And because it's quite quiet as well, it's just a nice place to spend time and to drive. You sort of find yourself changing the way that you drive. You're a lot more relaxed. I've got a bit of roadkill. You're a lot more relaxed when driving this. You tend to drive it much slower as a result. You sort of waft about in it. So it's nice in that way, and quite different from what a lot of manufacturers, they always use the word dynamic in their sort of marketing speak. I think Citroen have been quite brave here and quite looked at the way that the car sort of handles and rides, and have done it quite differently, and in that way fair dues. So I think I'm just going to turn right here. The one thing I don't like, and it's perhaps just me being, as I said in my interior video, just a bit of a stick in the mud, a bit sort of old school. I don't like the lane keep assist, because I was driving on the way over this morning to try, just to set things up, and I was going past a car, and all of a sudden the steering started sort of jerking around in my hand. Not much, but a little bit, and it's just really disconcerting. It's perhaps just me, but I'm sure it works fine on motorways and main A roads where it can see the edges of the road and the lines. But these back roads, of which there are a lot in the UK, it just doesn't seem to understand them. So I will switch it off, and then at least I know that it's me controlling the car and not the car controlling me. So I also mentioned in my last video that I wasn't going to talk about steering too much, but I will mention it in this. Not much, but it's just, it's in sport now, so it's has weighted it up a little bit. But if I put it back into just normal, there's a little bit of resistance there, but if you can sort of, it's really difficult to describe, but even though I'm doing that, there is a little bit of movement in the front wheels, but not a huge amount. So it's nowhere near as direct as the 208 was. So it's something to bear in mind. Most people don't care about that sort of thing, as long as it steers where it's supposed to go, and where you expect it to go, then no one really cares. But for the few of us that like to feel something, then yeah, it's not going to give you sort of low to the least levels of steering feedback. It's very little. So the last thing I think we were going to talk about was efficiency. So if I just if I switch the personal, no, wrong one. Okay. So I did set the trip computer just for this trip today. I'm not going to tell you the figure because it's a bit. Oh, actually, no, I'm looking at the wrong thing. My fault. I'm looking at the instant consumption. Where are we? Let's do this. It's a bit easier. Okay. Yeah. So I've done only about 8 miles, and we're getting 3.4 miles to the kilowatt hour, which is okay considering I've been mostly in sport mode and sort of seeing what the car can do. But I've been also testing it over the past 415 miles. Now you've got to admit, this is in summertime. Today it's 18 degrees Celsius, so you know, fairly good conditions for a battery. But over about 2 or 3 weeks, I've been getting 4.1 miles to the kilowatt hour, which I think, and I hardly ever drive this in eco mode. It's always just in normal. I just leave it in that. And just to mention something quickly about the miles kilowatt hour, it's a sort of standard measurement that people use nowadays, sort of the equivalent of miles to the gallon for fossil cars. Oh, I've never seen that happen before. Okay, so it's the equivalent of miles to the gallon, but the problem with miles to the kilowatt hour is that it's only telling us how far we're going on 1 kilowatt hour. It's not actually telling us how much energy that we're using. It's only giving us a distance. So that's why in my sort of what I put up on the screen, I also include watt hours per kilometre, because that gives us an actual measurement of energy usage. And at the end of the day, driving EVs, it's all about efficiency. It's, you know, all this talk about synthetic fuels and that side of things. I'm not going to go into that now, but the whole point of having an EV is, of course, the climate side of things and reducing carbon dioxide and all the other nasty gases that come from fossil cars. But it's also about efficiency. And so that's really important. And I think some manufacturers are sort of forgetting that perhaps a little bit. But that's where, I mean, Teslas are really strong at that. But to be fair, this is pretty good as well. So whilst we just wait for this Land Cruiser, don't know. I'll say thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys soon.